This slide set is for the Unit 5 small group discussion. The contributors are Joshua Malone, Cesar Mata, and Stephen Simon. Within the past decade, standardized testing has doubled and redoubled to become the norm in most public schools. High-stake exams are considered the most harmful sort of standardized test. These tests, according to Henry, decide the final outcome for students in a yay or nay scenario in terms of passing, advancing, or even graduating. It is thought that by upping the ante and letting students become aware of the serious consequences for failure, that it hopefully provokes more and better effort by getting the students' attention. However, this is not always the case, and there is no research data that show high stakes actually work to improve effort. Campbell's law has been proven true for centuries, dating back to the civil service exams of ancient Chinese traditions. Relative to high-stakes exams, it is clear that schools foregoing educational excellence and real learning to produce acceptable numerical appearances of learning ultimately fail the student. Our educational system is doing a huge disservice to our children by pressuring them to pass high-stake tests. I chose these 5 harms because they seem to be the most severe effects placed on our students and teachers. Using multiple choice standardized tests often measure low-order thinking skills. These tests usually use abstract questions that in no way connect to the student's life and are uninteresting. Standardized tests cannot measure right brain capabilities, which is a skill becoming more common in today's work environment. Creativity, analysis, collaborative people orientation, aesthetic, appreciation, and complex reasoning are being lost on students due to the high stress and anxiety in classrooms. This in turn equates to less learning. Students have increased fear and anxiety, which can cause them to sleep less, act out more, and become emotionally imbalanced. High-stakes standardized tests have caused schools to cut back on programs such as art and music, which give children no opportunity to de-stress during the day from the demanding schedule and expectations from core curriculum. All of these previous harms ultimately contribute to the high percentage of teacher turnover. Teachers are expected to perform routine tasks, which in turn undermines the very reason why good teachers want to teach. The result is that we are losing our most inspiring and effective teachers. There are 2 sides to every story. In regards to this topic, each side views testing differently. Customization asks what we listen to each individual, establish relationships, help build identity and assets as learners, then provide assistance in determining a workable route. They look optimistically at learning and seek to maximize what students can become, create, and provide the world. This side is willing to listen and take the time to ask what children want for themselves. Standardization requires student conformity. They produce products that are kicked on from school when they pass a minimum level of conformity with everyone else. They look fearfully at young children as inputs to an economic scheme who cannot achieve a minimally practical result. Agents of standardization are not nearly interested in the lives of poor and disenfranchised students, as they claim. Ideally, a combination of both views would benefit our children. Currently, our children are so engulfed by testing, they lack identities, confidence, and creativity in their learning. According to Canistrari and Marlowe, rubrics fail to provide a demonstration of the reading process that can be internalized by the writer. This refers to the cognitive factors employed during reading and writing grading processes in the classroom. but it also applies to any creative project or artistic work. There are so many intangibles in a creative project: inspiration, personal history, artistic expression, that just doesn't fit a rubric. In essence, a rubric is a tool that promotes standardization, which begets preparatory test taking. What is the reason for trying to grade and track the quality of students' efforts? Perhaps it is to rank the children against one another. Perhaps it is extrinsic inducement to strive for a better place on the test. In an effort to be fair and provide valid, reliable assessment while keeping our students motivated, we turn to tracking. But it takes more than this alone. Consider the 5 principles of assessment that Canestrati and Marlowe illustrate in Chapter 15. Excessive assessment becomes a performance-obsessed paradigm, which is acted out in the classroom and on the playground. By making evaluation less punitive and engaging student participation, it empowers the student with more control in the process. Canestrati and Marlowe make some practical suggestions in grading. One only has to Google this phrase to get about 19,500,000 hits on this very topic. But the 4 suggestions at the end of Chapter 15 are very positive suggestions for improving student performance. Given the diversity of students in our classrooms, one of their most useful suggestions speaks to the cognitive process. That is, while learning is underway, refrain from either grading or rewarding a student. Rewards can be a destructive force if poorly timed. William Johnson, a Brooklyn High School special education teacher, shares an experience in which he was labeled as a bad teacher. Johnson explores teacher evaluation methods that often put intense pressure on teachers and that are used to determine a teacher's effectiveness in as little as one observation. The fear of losing one's job can lead teachers to jump through hoops in an effort to appease an evaluator. Teachers can experience psychological or emotional stress from the pressure of evaluations, and some can be turned off completely by the experience and leave teaching altogether. Johnson states that good principals use evaluation methods to support teachers and not to weed out teachers with bad test scores. Johnson concludes that until we can offer equal educational resources to all students and teachers, we cannot say with certainty how well they are performing. Diane Ratvich, writing for the New York Review, offers excellent advice for how and how not to improve schools in the United States. Ravitch criticizes educational policies such as George W. Bush's No Child Left Behind and Barack Obama's Race to the Top as little more than efforts to increase standardized testing that ultimately means teachers should teach to the test. This movement is what Posse Sahlberg calls GERM, or Global Education Reform Movement, that assumes students must be tested constantly, and the test scores are the most important measure of success for all in education. Furthermore, students, teachers, and schools will be rewarded or punished based on these outcomes. Ravitch draws on comparisons with the educational system in Finland, which virtually uses no standardized testing and relies on teachers and students to do their best based upon their own intrinsic motivation and not by fear of being fired. Ravitch describes an adverse effect of the GERM movement as resulting in significantly higher teacher turnover in recent years. She informs us that in 1987, the largest group of teachers in the United States were those with 15 years of experience, and that by 2007, the largest group of teachers were in their first year of teaching. Higher paid and more experienced teachers are being driven away from the profession due to changes in educational policies that started with increases in standardized testing. Helen F. Ladd, Duke University economist, delivers a powerful address titled Education and Poverty, Confronting the Evidence, which explains that poverty is the biggest factor which affects education anywhere in the world. Rising poverty and income inequalities cannot be ignored or simply dismissed as excuses for bad teaching. Ravitch points out to other factors affecting education, such as the privatization of teaching, which seeks to make teaching as cost-efficient as possible. Methods can include replacing higher-paid experienced teachers with newer, lower-paid ones, as well as excluding certain students with disabilities from testing in order to inflate test scores. Ravitch draws on another comparison between the U.S. and Finland in regards to the standards for new teachers. In Finland, teaching is regarded as a highly respectable profession that is highly competitive, and only the top 10% of those interested in education are accepted. Whereas in the United States, some states don't even require that teachers pass a test to become certified. Ravitch concludes that by stating that schools alone cannot fix the education crisis, and that more must be done to address poverty and the inequities before true reform can be seen. That concludes our presentation. Thank you very much.